as Eli Manning stays on his feet. It is caught by
Tyree. Welcome back to Catch the Moment podcast. This is your host again, David Tyree. It's been quite a while since it's just been a solo mission, but I think in light of the topic, this is timely. It's always timely to talk about real life, real responsibility, and catching this moment right here is going to be really valuable for all the listeners, parents, business owners, because it's something really practical. We talk about something super duper practical, which adds value to every area of life. And we're talking about responsibility. I'm actually going to talk about responsibility very much in correlation to maturity, because this is something that me as a parent, a business owner, one who aspires to be excellent in all things, I really feel like, you know what, we gotta tap into some of our challenges, some of our pain points, so that we can understand what's the recipe. I'm raising sons. And I want you to understand, I'm raising sons. I have 3 daughters too, 4 boys, 3 girls. And I'll be honest with you, this is a massive pain point. I'm trying to bring young men along, and it feels like the world is against me. But I think this is also, as a business owner, you're dealing with younger employees, and we're always trying to figure out what's the problem here. And everybody goes through a process, so I'm going to go through some of these different generations, some of our mindsets. But at the end of the day, there is a direct correlation between responsibility and maturity, right? And let me just, I'm a definition guy, so y'all bear with me. Because you gotta, everybody makes up their own ideas, their own thoughts and themes. But responsibility, the first definition I really enjoyed was being answerable, willing to give an account. What's funny about our ideas about responsibility is we never tie it to being to other individuals, like being answerable, being willing to give an account. One of my favorite words, which I'm not going to go into, is stewardship. I really feel like everything that I'm given in this life, I'm a steward over. Meaning, like, I didn't give myself breath. I didn't give myself life, but I've been entrusted with it. I've been given this life. So what I do with it is my responsibility. I'm a steward of it, and I have to kind of give an answer. That's where responsibility comes in. So setting the tone, I think you're going to enjoy this. Go for the ride. My dad's a boomer. My parents were boomers, well-known generation, and my dad's an older boomer, so he's 74, and he's the bomb. He's a fantastic human being. I'm at the youngest. I'm the teeny bopper of Gen X, born 1980. And we got our millennials, and Gen Z is probably getting the most flack these days. So we got 4 primary generations still thriving in the workforce and in different components of our country today. We still have the greatest generation, which precedes the boomers. So we got a lot of different structures and frameworks. And when you look at just how the world has changed, and if you can just think about how the world has changed since the smartphone, man, it's changed rapidly. It's changed drastically. I can't get my dad to pick up his cell phone, and a Gen Z can't live without, the term that I've heard in relation to technology is that it's like an appendage. So we call it technology wearables. So what is the point of, kind of giving some background to all these different people groups? It's the fact that when you look at the times in which some of these people were alive, obviously we didn't have all these advances, these conveniences, and it obviously it made for a simple life, but the same themes that make us great as humans are always going to make us great. The same principles that are going to stand and try to be true are always going to allow us to be productive, right? So when I'm talking about responsibility is that, well, how did you gain a sense of work ethic, responsibility, trustworthiness, credibility, all these things that we're going to get into, is that you were given responsibility. There were things back in the day called chores, right? So there was things to do. Even when I was a kid, well, I'll be honest, I was the youngest dude. I ain't had that many chores, but you took the garbage out. You had responsibility within your home. And a lot of your responsibility was tied to your home. It was tied to your family. It was tied to a sense of, value around the things that really mattered amongst those generations, right? And of course, as our economy changes, different things change. So, my parents got in on that corporate wave. My mom was at Verizon, Bell Atlantic, that whole wave through the 80s. And my dad was at Revlon, corporate. So we were like the latchkey kids. That was kind of like, we were left, I would say left to ourselves, but society was changing. Divorces were, there was some narratives going on in America that really changed things in homes and parenting. Divorces on the rise, sexual revolution, all these different things. So that was Gen X, and precedingly, the millennials right up under me, the oldest millennials, the elder millennials. So all these things means that, guess what? We had things in place. We had sports, but the world didn't revolve around sports in the 80s. And so you had a true sense of responsibility in relation to, just how about the simple things, right? And I'm going to talk about 5 things that responsibility really cultivates. And the obvious is what I'm kind of focusing on right now is maturity. When you're responsible, it's a process that brings you to completion, right? Or to a state of, right? When we think about completion, we're in this process of arriving to a particular place, position, or destination, right? We want to get to a place where we're whole. That's the thing I focus on, even as an adult, as a father, as a leader. I want to be whole. I want these areas of my life to be full. And when you think about when you think about a fruit, you want it to be ripe. You want that fruit to get to maturity. You want that to be full of age. And that's what maturity is, the process of bringing us to a state of being mature, right? And with that comes credibility, right? It comes, and that's the first thing I want to talk about with responsibility. So when I give my kids an assignment, when I give them a responsibility, when I give them a task, when I give them an instruction, I am giving them responsibility. When I give my employee his job description, this is a clear direction. Hey, this is what your responsibility is. This is what your task was. And this is what you're going to be measured upon. So the first thing, responsibility from our youngest years gives us a sense of how well we're doing, right? Which kind of bleeds into a next point, but it brings us to maturity. My ability or inability to grasp my command on those sense of responsibilities shows how well I'm doing. You know what? Brush your teeth, wash your face. These are responsibilities. They don't serve the parent well, right? Other than the fact that we have a peace of mind when these kids don't stink. We have a peace of mind when their breath don't stink, right? We have a peace of mind when our employees are getting their task on hand. I want to share this powerful quote that, sadly, I guess you say sadly been disgraced, but his legacy is dynamic. And a man named Ravi Zacharias, he has this quote around the word duty, right? Duty is a sense of responsibility. So duty is the handmaiden of love and honor. Duty is the handmaiden of love and honor. It says, it is doing that which is right rather than that which is convenient. Oh my goodness, I'm getting excited just reading. In fact, failure of duty generally amputates somebody else's right. And this is what we start seeing in teams, in workplaces, and even in families. While you have so many frustrated parents, these parenting streets is real, okay? Because anytime that my children don't do the dishes, I have a frustrated wife. I have a frustrated wife. It's gonna be hard getting some love and everybody's mind being at ease. They say getting to the Zen place. Well, when the house is a wreck, when the house is not a right, there's no one at peace, right? So it says failure of duty amputates someone else's right. I have a right to peace as a parent. I have a right to peace as someone who is laying a pathway and creating opportunity and stability for my children. So I'm just using the children as the hard example here because many of us are entering in or want to enter into that phase. But how about responsibility starts with every single one of us individually? Evaluate where you're at in this process, but maturity is the process that our sense of responsibility and our ability to grasp it, have command of it, really allows us to enter into. Let me tell you the second thing that responsibility gives us. It gives us purpose, right? So the powerful thing about purpose is you'll hear things like you got to find your why, right? You got to find your why. Why are you waking up? Well, at the end of the day, I really believe that everyone was created with great sense of purpose from God on high, right? I think we have an eternal purpose, but obviously we have a purpose here on the earth. And oftentimes they align. Sometimes they don't align as nice as we would like. But responsibility is the practice ground, right? And even in our life here on the earth, that's what gives us a sense of direction. It gives us a sense of accomplishment. It gives us our why. So, if you don't have direction, you're already going to feel like you're confused, right? That's why we need parents, leaders, coaches. We need people who have vision for our lives and give us the pathway, right? So responsibility gives us purpose, right? That's the second thing I really wanted to just kind of hit on. You got to find your why. I think that number one, we have to be given a sense of direction, right? That puts us on a pathway to find out the things that really make us alive, right? Everybody wants this. America gives us a false sense of meaning because you can do so many things, right? It gives us a false sense of meaning sometimes because you literally can chart your own pathway. And a lot of times people find out whether they've done it and accomplished it or not, it's not quite as fulfilling as it have. But responsibility, just in its practical sense of having a clear sense of direction, duty, and command of that. Because it's kind of like stacking wins. If you get that small win, you stack the win, and you find out that you are proficient, you are competent, and it breeds confidence. It breeds confidence. All right, the third thing I want to talk about that responsibility gives us, it gives us an opportunity for evaluation, right? What have you been given? What is your task? What is your responsibility? What are you expected to do daily, right? And did you do it, right? The definition is be willing to give an account. So whether it's your boss, your teammates, your coaches, you have to be willing to give an account. That's what proves your sense of responsibility. Now, our attitude along the way is a whole other conversation, right? I say you have to be willing and obedient to eat the good of the land. That's the scripture says. So willingness deals with your attitude, your obedience, or your ability to get the job done. That deals with your aptitude. Can you actually do it, right? So attitude and aptitude, two different things. But I'm focused morely on the evaluation process. It gives you an opportunity to measure, okay, where am I really at in this process? I think I'm good, but am I really actually getting these things done? Do I make excuses, right? There's an opportunity for evaluation, right? So we see this. The fourth thing that responsibility prepares us for is leadership, right? Because, throughout the threads of life, in any particular role or hat that you put on, there are responsibilities that come along with it. Well, I tell my children, we have a nice little thing that we've gone through. We adopted this from, I think, a book called Raising a Modern Day Knight. We've added a couple things along the way. Real men reject passivity, accept responsibility, lead courageously. Real men expect a greater reward. I loved that book years ago, read it. But we added real men make disciples and real men work, right? Because at the end of the day, I correlate work to worship. Like it's a beautiful thing in my living paradigm. I love work. I love work. I was created to work, right? So I was created to work. I rejoice in it. And because I have the right view of it, I don't loathe it, right? I don't loathe work. I think that it's my opportunity to offer whatever my hands are put to. I could offer that right back to God and do it unto him and glorify him with that work. So when I'm talking about leadership, how you command your life is the first thread of leadership. How you're responsible and give an account for your own life and your ability to command your life is the first thread of leadership. Once you've proven to be credible in that, once you've taken others into account as well as being able to evaluate your own self, then that sense of responsibility and that command, it gives the credibility for you to be in position to impact others, right? That's kind of where leadership really starts. You must be able to lead your own life to the point where your influence now has an impact on others. People will see the way that you command your own life, right? That sense of responsibility. And trust me, if you do it like you're alive, then it's going to be infectious, right? Your life and your leadership. If you actually do it like you like it, then it's going to be infectious in a way where you will inspire others, right? So a lot of times, we have different styles of leadership, and we can acknowledge that's another conversation, but it really all starts with someone having a command of their own life, their own duty, and their own sense of responsibility, right? Know your role, right? Do your job. And when you do that consistently and at a high level, you will begin to rise to the top and become a leader because it impacts others. Everybody's not always as proficient as someone who has a great command and credibility upon what they do. So that's the fourth thing that leadership, how responsibility correlates to leadership. The last thing I really want to talk about, this is kind of what I felt like has been our sweet spot, myself, my wife, and our experience, right? Hey guys, looking for an edge in sports betting? Our sponsor, betting.us, has got you covered. Get expert analysis, betting tips, and up-to-date odds all in one place. Bet smarter with betting.us, the ultimate sports betting destination. Responsibility it really enhances your growth capacity, right? What do I mean by growth capacity? It's kind of like working out. When you work out, you stretch, you actually tear your muscles, but let's say you stretch your muscles and it gives room for growth. And that's what responsibility does. Responsibility, the more, there's a scripture that I love. It says, he who has, more will be given, right? He who has, more will be given. And what does that mean? It's kind of like the person who's busy is always chosen for the next task. Why? Because they're actually are getting things done, right? So what does that mean? Because they don't despise responsibility, because they recognize the reward and the fruit of it in the fact that they're growing, they're learning, they're proving to be credible along the way. They're garnering respect by virtue of the honor that comes along with being responsible, right? Because it comes with rewards. Responsibility comes with rewards. So I think it's really important to recognize that just recognizing what being entrusted with that next task, right? Seizing the opportunity to prove yourself, credible in a particular instance in whatever role you have, because this goes from son, husband, father, employee, boss, teammate, wide receiver. Doesn't matter where you go. There's different responsibilities that go along with that. You have to recognize and understand your role, but understand that along the way, right? When you add one, it's an opportunity for growth. It's an opportunity. Don't alleviate yourself. Allow yourself to be stretched. Allow your growth capacity to be stretched in a way where you can see that responsibility, right? I can give you the most obvious one. I've shared this as one of my defining moments. In college, I'm living, because when you're living for yourself, I tell you, that's one measure of responsibility, right? You're an individual, you have a command of your life, your school. You know what? Maybe your goals are to go to school. Maybe your goals are to get a certification, go to whatever it is. It's your own life. You're a young man and you're getting command of that. But you know what? You take on a girlfriend. You take on a boyfriend. I'm gonna tell you, in my world, that don't fly too much. I'm like, listen, I'm the holy dude. So what does that mean? But once you take on certain roles, there's a responsibility that comes with that, right? And those are communicated. Those are agreed upon. Every relationship has some terms. Doesn't matter what it is. There's some expectations that come along with every relationship. So, but even more so, the turning point was 21 years old, and I have a child. Being a father is a enormous responsibility to take care of another individual, right? To take care of all that comes along with it, providing for them, protecting for them, laying up for them, having a vision for them, right? I didn't even have a vision for myself at 21 years old. I was just enjoying the ride, right? And I think that's where you start to begin to measure what life is all about when your responsibility begins to exceed, or you understand how your life impacts others innately. So I'll go back to that quote. Failure of duty generally amputates somebody else's right. Not understanding your responsibility is kind of like each play. That's the unique thing about football. Each play, 11 individuals have to come together to perform their tasks just to get one successful play, right? If one person messes up, you might be able to get away with it. 2 people, less likely. 3 people, I can assure you, will not be that much of a successful play. 3 breakdowns in one individual play, it's not happening, right? Unless it was the helmet catch where we know the offensive line didn't block anybody and we needed a miracle. We could just be honest right there. Big shout out to my teammates. So the 5th point was growth capacity. I'll go back because the centerpiece of this was centered around these different dynamics that we're experiencing in our generations, where my children, and this is the biggest challenge that we're experiencing amongst emerging generations. We're in the age of specialization. Everybody wants to be great at one thing. Well, it's kind of like I grew up in an age where there were more multi-sport athletes. Well, it was kind of like, you know what? You did something during the season. Well, now we got Malcolm Gladwell, 10,000 hours. Everybody's specializing in one thing. So their identity is in one thing. They're less secure by virtue of not having experience. I know I've read, and I don't have the data here, but I've read in articles about how multi-sport athletes are more emotionally stable, right? Because they have, and actually their bodies are conditioned better because of the different exercises that their bodies have kind of overlapped. So it's pretty interesting when you think about identity, right? And I'm gonna get right back to responsibility and maturity, but it's pretty interesting in how that all correlates, because if you don't have a sense of duty and understanding what your role is and how that begins to impact others, and that still translates to me as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, thought leader, father, all these different hats that I wear, full-time, everything. But if I don't understand what my duty is for the day, then I will amputate someone else's right to succeed, to flourish, to be highly proficient, to hit their mark of excellence, whatever it is, right? Duty recognizes a cause greater than oneself. Duty recognizes a cause greater than oneself. The tail end of that quote says, as men and as fathers, we have a duty before God and man to do what is right, honorable, and sacrificial. The reason why I feel like this is a really powerful and important and relevant topic, because number one, it crosses genders, it crosses roles, because everybody has responsibilities in their given day. Everybody is desiring to get great done. You'll hear me say this all the time, because I believe that everybody has an opportunity to innately be great. Why? You can reach someone. Everyone can reach someone. Everyone can reach someone in a profound, dynamic way. And the more profound that is, that can enhance your reach. So greatness has the ability to be narrow and deep, or has the chance to be wide, right, and shallow. So you can be great in reach, or you can be great in impact. So we have to find every single day, find a way to get great done. But having a sense of responsibility, i.e. duty, is what is going to bring us to maturity. So why did I bring in the generations? Because we're starting to see that it's talked about by delayed adolescence. Young men are getting married later and later. Some of it are looking at it purely as an economic decision, but it's not just that. It's not just that. It's, everybody has a different view around marriage, but at the end of the day, marriage is a responsibility. You're taking on the responsibility to command a home, to command a family. And this is especially for men, because yes, call me a traditionalist. I believe that it's his responsibility to lead his home. Everything under my home, I'm fully responsible for, including my wife, even though she is supportive, dynamic, by my side with me in all things. But I take her on as my full responsibility, right? Her care, and I kind of, I'll be honest, I'm going to go ahead and have one of these guilty confessions. When someone sees my wife and they tell, they celebrate her beauty, it's actually a compliment to me, right? It's actually a compliment to me. Now I got to get back on track because, if anybody knows my life, y'all see Liala at Clean Juice, and she work hard. She work hard. And sometimes she come home tired. I'm like, I got to get back on my job. But she's responsible for what we have created. She's taking the same sense of duty, the same mind, the same commitment because we are one. So I think that this is a dynamic topic that hits a lot of different spaces, but I really want to target, especially the men. It applies to the women, but especially the men, because we're evading maturity by unwillingness to be responsible, right? We don't want to escape, right? Because it's always there waiting for you. It's kind of like, you don't progress until you pass the test, right? And that's the reality. There's never going to be a pinnacle there's never going to be a mountain that you climb without actually climbing that sucker, right? You can't evade the responsibility that comes with maturity. You're not going to get it. And eventually people arrive at certain destinations and they realize, I guess I got to do this. That's some of the temperament that we're starting to see amongst some of our emerging generation. And it just doesn't bode well. It doesn't bode well. There's this correlation. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. And weak men create hard times. Well, hard times are here. Hard times are here, but hard times create strong men, right? And it's time for the strong men to raise up, become responsible, be answerable, be willing to give an account for your actions. Did you fulfill the assignment? Did you follow the instruction? Did you obey the command? Did you take the initiative that was given? And that is going to bring us to maturity. That's going to bring us to wholeness. That's going to bring us to a state of completion. You're going to be ripe and you're going to be prepared for the task that you're appointed to in your life. So the 5 things again, right, are maturity. That is the centerpiece. Purpose, evaluation. You're going to be measured. Leadership and growth capacity. So listen, let's take account. Let's be responsible. But ultimately, our responsibility is always a sign that we're alive, right? Because you actually have to be alive to give an answer. You have to be alive. You got to have a pulse, right? So it's time to raise up. It's time for our emerging generations to band together, our existing generations to band together. It's not a bashing, but I'm still in the trenches too. When I look at my children, even my sons, I still have younger sons, I'm like, man, I got more work to do. I got to raise a man. Okay, so what does that mean? That means a lot. It means a whole lot. But it starts with me giving them a clear sense of direction, giving them not lowering the standard for these young men, and helping them to understand what I expect, what and how they're going to be rewarded along the way, right? Not for the sake of being rewarded, for the sense of duty that comes along with being a stakeholder and sharing this family and becoming a man and being prepared to take that torch as they're moving along. So I want to thank everybody for rocking with me on this one. Hopefully this was something that was, gave you some great insight, some value, something that you could take hold of so that you can command your day, command your task, and get great done along the way. Appreciate y'all for checking in. We'll catch the moment. Y'all be blessed on the good journey, and we'll check in with you soon.